anti-Semitism on the right. What about anti-Semitism on the left?
It's time for The Line of Fire with your host, biblical scholar and cultural commentator, Dr. Michael Brown. Your voice for moral sanity and spiritual clarity. Call 866-34-TRUTH to get on The Line of Fire. And now, here's your host, Dr. Michael Brown.
It is Thoroughly Jewish Thursday, and we are here as always to infuse you with faith and truth and courage to help you stand strong on the front lines, but in particular, when it comes to God's purposes for Israel, what's happening in the Jewish world, that's what we focus in on Thursdays. If you have a Jewish-related call, could be having to do with matters in Israel today, could be a question about Hebrew language or Jewish tradition or Messianic prophecy. If it is a Jewish-related question, give us a call, 866-348-7884. That's 866-34-TRUTH. A few things we want to cover, and then we will go to the phones. 866-34-TRUTH. So many people have asked me over the years, Christians have asked me, why is it that the vast majority of American Jews vote Democrat? Now, it has been shifting as the religious population in America is growing. Orthodox Jews, still a small minority, but growing. They tend to be more conservative in their values and reflect more Republican values in their voting. Trump won over some Jewish support. So there has been a shift, but still the large majority of American Jews vote Democrat. And when we're asked about that, why is that the case, especially when the Republicans are more staunchly pro-Israel than the Democrats? Well, one reason is that as much as Israel is important to American Jews, Israel's not top priority. American Jews are socially liberal, therefore will vote in a, quote, progressive way in harmony with Democrat candidates. For them, this is a part of being prophetically right, social justice causes siding with minority, etc. So abortion would be seen as a woman's right, or same-sex quote marriage would be seen as a gay right, and Jews as a minority are sensitive to these things and feel that they're supposed to stand for these things as Jews. And also Jews historically have been very concerned about a religious government knowing what often happens to them when the government is religious, be it Christian or Muslim. Then they are the odd man out and have often suffered because of that and even been expelled from countries. These are some of the reasons that Americans have voted Democrat over the years. There's a shift taking place, but what's happened very recently, in the last 12 months, has been after the October 7th Hamas massacre in Israel, that the atmosphere on college campuses, from professors down to students, crying out against Israel in the most horrific terms, standing with Hamas. 31 student organizations at Harvard, for example, immediately after the massacre, with a matter of days, put out a statement jointly saying the massacre, the slaughter of 1,200 Israelis, the kidnapping of 250, was all Israel's fault. Rather than blaming Hamas, they blamed Israel. So this outrageousness, university chancellors, professors unable to blatantly say that calling for the extermination of Israel is in itself anti-Semitic and forbidden hate speech on a campus. So this has really opened the eyes of many more liberal, progressive American Jews who realize, hey, Democrat Party and the left, it's gone wacko. It's gone way too far. Now, in some recent primary elections, there's been further pushback. So you've heard of, quote, the squad over the years. So the original members in the House of Representatives, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, hang on, I don't want to get the original members incorrect. Yeah, Ayanna Pressley and Rashida Tlaib, with Tlaib and Omar being Muslims, Tlaib with Palestinian background, Omar from Somalia. Then subsequent additions, recent additions, since 2020, would have been Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, Greg Caesar, Summer Lee, Delia Ramirez. Well, Jamal Bowman, in his primary in New York, was ousted, okay? He got ousted. He didn't make it in. And we're not talking about losing to a Republican. He lost to a fellow Democrat. Cori Bush just lost in Missouri to a fellow Democrat. Now, bear in mind, the members of the squad are basically black, Hispanic, but this is not a black, Hispanic versus Jewish issue, okay? For example, Cori Bush was displaced by a progressive black candidate, all right? Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because both of them were with the help of AIPAC, which is American Israel Political Action Committee. They were both defeated with money from AIPAC because they had such anti-Israel views. I'm talking about Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, such strong anti-Israel views that they were defeated by other Democrats, other liberal Democrats. This is not white conservative Republican versus black liberal Democrat. That's not what the battle was. This was a battle between progressive Democrats, black Democrats, Hispanic Democrats. That's where the battle was, a primary in the Democratic Party. But they were so militantly anti-Israel in some of their stances, and in some cases you could say actually anti-Semitic, that Jewish vote, so Democratic Jewish vote, Jewish funding, helped oust them. Cori Bush, rather than give a normal concession speech and congratulate her opponent and say, hey, I've appreciated your support and I'll be back, had something else to say that's got a lot of attention. I want you to listen to it now. Clip's a couple minutes long.
Pulling me away from my position as Congresswoman. All you did was take some of the strings off. Let's be clear. 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 Let's talk about what it really is. Because see, now I don't have to worry about some strings that I have attached, and as much as I love my job. But all they did was radicalize me, and so now they need to be afraid. See, now they about to see this other Cori, this other side, because let me say this. I just grew up a whole lot more over the last few weeks. Just grew up a whole different way. And so what they are about to get, they think. So the thing is this. The thing is this. I don't think that anything, there is nothing that happens in my life that happens in vain. So if this happened, it's because it was meant to happen. And let me say, it's because of the work that I need to do. And let me say this. AIPAC, I'm coming to tear your kingdom down.
All right, so AIPAC, American Israel Political Action Committee. Sorry for the choppiness of the video. That's the way it was. AIPAC, I'm coming to tear your kingdom down. So this is some of the anti-Semitism on the left that is being uncovered, that is coming to light. And it's been there. Many statements by members of the squad have been ugly. Ilhan Omar has been called to account for them. Rashida Tlaib sat with a sign as Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking, calling him a war criminal because of a ruling from the ICC. So this is out there. It's getting more intense, and it's going to cause some shift in voting. Now, in this case, AIPAC backed another Democrat candidate. So still, the great majority of Jewish voters are voting Democrat. But just want to address this. It's out there. It's ugly. Wherever it comes from, the right or the left. As I said, Jews have been concerned for many years about anti-Semitism on the right and Christian supremacist movements and things like that. Right-wing Republicans that they thought were just going to try to take over the country and enforce Christianity. And obviously there's some fear-mongering in the midst of this and misinformation. But that's where Jews have been more concerned in America and have not recognized how insidious the anti-Semitism is on the left. So you get it from the people like white supremacist Nick Fuentes and his Christ the King chant in an anti-Semitic way. You get it from people like that on the right, and you get it from the Cori Bushes on the left. I just want to make one quick comment. Then we want to give you updates from Israel, tell you a little bit about Yahya Sinwar being appointed as the new senior leader of Hamas, the political leader to take the place of Ismail Haniyeh, assassinated likely by Israel in Iran a couple of weeks ago. I want to share something from a very interesting article in the Jerusalem Post a little bit later in the show about Sinwar. But I just want to draw attention to something. It's a real frustration, and it's so deceptive and it's so dishonest. I don't know if in every case it's the people putting out videos who are doing this intentionally or putting out stories doing this intentionally, or they're media people doing it. But you see it all the time. Here's a headline with this outrageous statement. And then you read the article, and it's not accurate. It's just clickbait. It's absolute clickbait. And it's frustrating because you watch a video. Okay, here's some important information. I should see this. And then when you actually get to what's happening, either it's not there at all, or it's completely overstated. Look, for example, that I militantly oppose the policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on a number of issues, that I could not possibly vote Democrat for many reasons. I've made that clear, my own convictions. I'm a registered independent, by the way, as a matter of testimony and statement. I voted GOP because of policy issues. But you're aware that I am not a political fan of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. President Biden, Vice President Harris, I pray for their salvation and for God's best in their lives. I see these headlines, and it's implying that Vice President Harris really blew things at this rally and these anti-Israel protesters were chanting. So I actually watched it. I think she handled it well. Again, I'm not her fan, but I think she handled it well. I'm thinking, what would I do in that circumstance? I think she handled it well. And turn things, etc. But you read the head, blast it a certain way. Okay, just put this up. Put this YouTube graphic up. There's a very popular YouTube channel, and there you see AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, has a psychotic breakdown after Cori Bush is defeated. Psychotic breakdown. Okay, so then you get to the end of the video, and this is what she actually says on CNN. Do we have it?
And just a few moments ago, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a fellow squad member, responded to Bush's defeat.
There is an enormous amount of influence of big money in politics. Cori Bush's race was the second most expensive primary in American history. Jamal Bowman's race was the most expensive primary in American history, and all of that money was spent against them.
That's it. That's the so-called psychotic breakdown. Just giving some information. So I'm not a fan of AOC. But what? Why the deceptive clickbait? It's everywhere online. It's epidemic. Let's make sure we as believers don't do the same thing. We'll be right back. I'm going to go straight to the phones.
This is Michael Ellison, founder of Trivita Wellness. I'm always thrilled to offer a new product from Trivita that is science-supported with equivalent doses per serving that follows the science. And that is true of our KSM 66 ashwagandha with its protective process from farm to manufacturing plant. The KSM 66 has 24 published gold standard clinical trials in reducing stress, enhancing sleep, and increased vitality. In a recent Harris poll, 87% of Americans feel stressed. I know the effects of chronic stress. It happened to me a number of years ago, and I will never forget when the physician said, "Michael, you must change the way you think, or you will have no quality of life and you will die a premature death." Now, I can assure you ashwagandha KSM 66 is in my daily diet.
I'm Dr. Paul Burnett, a board-certified doctor of holistic health and director of wellness services at Trivita. I want you to know that Trivita's ashwagandha KSM 66 is not just ashwagandha. Ashwagandha KSM 66 undergoes a rigorous formulation process and has 22 gold standard clinical trials. Trivita's ashwagandha KSM 66 adaptogenic properties assist your body in adapting to stress, reducing fatigue, and restoring your natural balance. Join countless others who have discovered the benefits of Trivita's ashwagandha KSM 66.
Order today and use promo code BROWN25 to receive 25% off your order. As a new customer, 100% of your order proceeds from your first order will go to support the Line of Fire radio broadcast. Call 1-800-771-5584, 1-800-771-5584, or online at Trivita, Trivita.com.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown. Get on The Line of Fire by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Welcome back to Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. Shout out of appreciation to our co-sponsor, Trivita. So appreciate them standing with us and donating so generously to help us reach more and more people through the Line of Fire. And yeah, part of my daily routine and regimen myself. 866-348-7884. Let's go to New York. Ephraim, welcome to the Line of Fire.
I love Israel and I love Yeshua, and because I've gone through 2 conversion processes, I can honestly say that Israel is my people. But if you love someone, you tell them the truth. You don't tell them a lie. And the truth is that Jews and Christians today are ignorant of Shabtai Tzvi and the Sabbatean movement and its connection to the land of Israel. And the reason why they're ignorant of this history...
Well, hang on. Do you have a question?
Yeah, well, one of the questions is, have you ever read To Kill the Opiate by Rabbi Marvin Antelman?
No, but I've studied Shabbatai Tzvi and the Shabbatai movement and the Don Met people right up into the 20th century. So I've studied that, and quite aware of that, and the existence of the Don Met still in Turkey and the role that they have. But I do not believe... Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I haven't read the book. Yeah.
In the book by Rabbi Marvin Antelman, who loved Israel, by the way, too, he died there. He illustrates that these Sabbateans taught that there was 2 ways to bring about the Messiah. One is if everyone kept the commandments. The other way was if everybody broke the commandments.
Right. That's well known Sabbatean view. Yeah. That's commonly known.
And on Tish B'Av, yeah. Well, on Tish B'Av, he shows in that book that it was Adolf Hitler was conceived on Tish B'Av by these same Sabbateans, and to brush this off as not important. Well,
tell you what, Ephraim, it's Adolf Hitler is not descendant from Sabbateans. That's a complete myth.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. All right. So, friends, let me just take a moment to explain who Shabbatai Tzvi was. He was one of the most prominent false messiahs in Jewish history. He was from best we can tell, a manic depressive, bipolar. So he had these heights of ecstasy and these depths of despair. He began to reveal what were allegedly secrets and so on. And so this is in Eastern Europe at a time of tremendous difficulty, persecution, financial upheaval. And because of his eccentricities and some drawing on him, and he was also a Torah scholar, that he began to draw a following after him. Then a man had a dream and saw that Shabbatai was the Messiah, became his prophet, began to proclaim him. So we're talking the 1600s and the second third of the 1600s when he begins to thrive and is known. Even his birth was associated with the birth date of the Messiah. So he gets this massive following. He is now going to lead a movement to the Holy Land. So the Palestine under Ottoman Empire, he goes to visit the Sultan and proclaim that he is the Messiah, so the Sultan will bow down and worship him. Instead, the Sultan puts up with him for a while, puts him in prison, and then gives him an ultimatum. Okay, enough already. You either convert to Islam or you die. So he converts to Islam. So when he converts to Islam, what's the justification? Well, there's Jewish thinking that the Messiah will only come when the world is totally righteous or totally wicked. And because he wasn't able to make it totally righteous, he'll lead the apostasy. So many of his closest followers also converted to Islam. However, they continue to live a secret Jewish identity. They're called the Don Meh and exist up until this day quite remarkably. All right, you might find the bulk of them, small numbers, in Turkey, but that was their lineage, and some have become much more secular over the centuries. But while living as Muslims, they would also pray Hebrew prayers and prayers acknowledging Shabbatai Tzvi as Messiah. Talk about a weird cult. But the idea that there's a connection between that and Adolf Hitler, I 100% categorically dismiss as nonsense, historical fiction. 866-34-TRUTH. Let's go over to Kevin in Sweden. Welcome to the Line of Fire.
So, hello, Dr. Brown. I have a question here.
Yes.
So, a Jew gets saved by grace through faith.
Yes.
But are Jews still bound to keep the law? Eat according to kosher and hold the sermonic laws and so on?
So, in other words, the laws that could be kept today with the absence of a temple and no more sacrifices and things like that. Right. My answer is no. I have Messianic Jewish friends who differ with me. We all agree it's not a matter of salvation, right? We all agree that we're saved by grace through faith. 100% we agree on that. That you are not saved by keeping the law. That, for example, if you don't observe the seventh-day Sabbath, you're not going to hell. If you don't keep the kosher laws, you're not going to hell. We all agree on that. But some of my friends would say that we are commanded to maintain Jewish identity, which means by the Spirit, not under the condemnation of the law, but by the Spirit, living by the Spirit and as instructed by the Spirit, that we now incorporate these things in our lives. And that, for example, Acts 15, the Jewish believers, it was taken for granted they would continue to live as Jews. The question was, did the Gentile believers need to live as Jews? And the answer was no. 1 Corinthians 7, beginning of verse 17, Paul says, if you were called, meaning saved, circumcised, don't become uncircumcised. Were you called, meaning saved, uncircumcised, don't become circumcised. So Jews don't become Gentiles, Gentiles don't become Jews. So if this is your heritage, this has been your life, well, you don't stop keeping the seventh-day Sabbath, just do it in the new way of the Spirit. You don't stop identifying with your people with kosher laws, just do it in the way of the Spirit. Where I differ with my friends here is simply saying that it is an individual calling. In other words, many of us before we were saved practically lived like Gentiles, even though we're Jews. In other words, I didn't, I went to synagogue, I was bar mitzvah, I knew I was Jewish, but I didn't observe the Sabbath. We weren't Sabbath observant. I didn't like non-kosher food, but we didn't keep kosher in the house. I just had a very limited diet. We celebrated the holidays on a certain level, but it wasn't part of my life. My wife, Nancy, grew up, she had different stepfathers, stepfathers, grew up in Reform Judaism, and it was so liberal, and she realized God's not even here. So she ultimately lived in a way that would have been more like a Gentile than a Jew. So much to get saved, and now you start putting on Jewish customs and traditions can often be confusing. So I identify deeply as a Jew. That my weekly day of rest, unless I'm out speaking, is going to be the Sabbath. It just so happens I don't eat any non-kosher food, period, for many years. And I feel deeply called as a Jew to my people and a deep solidarity with my people, yet I cannot say, of course, I'm called to keep the seventh-day Sabbath. Of course, I'm called to keep the feasts and holy days. To me, it's going to be more of an individual calling, how our Jewish identity expresses itself. So we all agree it's not binding as far as salvation, whereas if we reject Jesus, if we reject Yeshua, we're lost. We don't feel that way about Sabbath observance, etc. But there is, within the Messianic movement, there are two convictions. One is that all of us are called by God to maintain a certain Jewish identity, lifestyle, in conformance with Torah in the newness of the Spirit. And the other would be as God lays it on your heart and directs you that you are to do it, but you can't make a universal statement. So just a slight difference of nuance between us.
But don't you think it's like if a Jew isn't like eating according to kosher and stuff like that, then a Christian leader start to say to him that you're bound to keep the law. You're not allowed to eat.
No, they should. They ought not to say that because we have a different relationship with the law. And the vast majority of Jews around the world don't keep kosher. Only the religious do. Hey, stay there. We'll keep talking on the other side of the break. Hey friends, Michael Brown here. My delight to serve as your voice for moral sanity and spiritual clarity. We are living in such urgent times today, friends, that all of us are in the line of fire. There's a target on your back. There's a target on my back. If you simply seek to live by biblical values or just conservative moral values, you could be canceled. You could be cast out. You could be put down. You could be silenced. I'm here to say, friends, that I am not about to be silenced, and I don't believe you are either. It is time for us to stand up. It is time for us to say enough is enough. It is time for us to push back in Jesus' name. Not fighting the way the world fights. No, overcoming evil with good, overcoming hatred with love, overcoming the flesh with the power of the Spirit, overcoming lies with truth. And that's what we're here to do on the Line of Fire broadcast. And friends, it's not just a broadcast, it is a movement of people around the world. God's people standing up saying enough is enough and saying, Lord, here we are, send us, use us. I want to urge you today to join our support team because we are on the front lines together. And we are literally touching people around the world, in America, in the nations, in Israel. And together with your help, we're going to amplify this voice and spread this movement around the globe. So I encourage you, go right now to thelineoffire.org, thelineoffire.org. Click Donate Monthly Support. Thelineoffire.org, click Donate Monthly Support. When you do, you become a torchbearer. We immediately send you 2 great life-changing books. We immediately give you access to many classes I've taught. Others have to pay to take those. You get them for free. Exclusive video, audio content, a new audio message every month, an insider prayer newsletter, 15% discount on our online bookstore, so much more. Join our support team today. Go to thelineoffire.org. Donate monthly support.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown. Get on The Line of Fire by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Welcome back to Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. Shalom, shalom. I want to go back to the phones in a moment with Kevin in Sweden. Before I do that, there is still no news from Israel in terms of the expected attack from Iran, and then certainly they'd be joined by Hezbollah. Does Hamas have any ability to strike as well? The Houthis, would they join in? If that was the case, it would be from the east, the north, the west, and the south. So you're talking about a real serious assault. Just Iran alone, obviously, brings in great seriousness. But as much as Israel is bracing, and as much as there's world diplomacy to try to stop things from accelerating, still nothing has happened. As of just this moment, checking the latest, nothing has happened as of this moment. Keep praying for God's hand of protection and for his will to be done. So, Kevin, I just wanted to have clarity. Are you saying that a Christian leader might say to a Jewish believer, you're obligated to do these things?
Yeah, but actually, the leader is saying, like, it's not sin, but you're bound to keep the law.
Right.
You know, you're bound to hold kosher and the ceremonial laws and stuff like that.
Right. So I would ask them, since we're under a new and better covenant, show me that in the new covenant. And then I would also ask him, what about all...
Then he says like this.
Go ahead.
Then he says like this, you know, all the apostles, Jesus and all the apostles was keeping kosher and the rest of the law.
Right. But they also participated in the sacrificial system, which all went away with the destruction of the temple. So since then, if you just look at laws in the Torah, all right, and I've done a careful study of this, look at every law that says it's forever for all generations, right? Roughly 75% of those laws can only be kept with a functioning temple and Israelite sovereignty in the land. So roughly 75% of the forever commandments we can't keep. Then the bulk of Torah legislation had to do with blood sacrifice, tabernacle, etc. That has all been done away with through the cross. We have Hebrews 7 clearly saying there was a change in law because there's been a change in priesthood. So we have all these statements. We're also not under the law. We're under grace. So there's been a change in our relationship. And then there's so many other things aside from kosher laws. What about celebrating the new moon? Are Jewish believers bound to do that? What about all the laws about ritual purity and cleansing? You know what? So it's so selective. People are so selective in it. Either God has done a new thing in Yeshua and has given us a new and better way. Even then, we understand that eating non-kosher food does not defile us spiritually. Jesus makes that clear in Mark 7 and Matthew 15. Even if you ate food, say your hands were unwashed, that would now make the food unclean. You ate the food. That doesn't defile you on the inside. And Peter does eat with Gentiles. So so in certain circumstances,
do you believe that he ate like non-kosher food?
Well, in Acts 10, do you assume that they had kosher food to give him? When it says that he's accused of eating with Gentiles. So in any and anyone that I know, even the most devoted Messianic Jew, would recognize if they are in a situation where in order to reach someone with the gospel, they had to eat something unclean, they would do it for the sake of the gospel because they understand it doesn't actually defile them, doesn't defile them on the inside because it's only physical. So that Christian pastor is a leader, however well intended, is laying a yoke on people not to be laid. What he could say is, you should really pray about your Jewish identity and what that means. And if there is to be greater solidarity with your people by observing these laws, etc. But what's interesting is that a country like Sweden, most of the Jews there would be fairly secular. And they're very religious. They're not intersecting as much with the rest of society. But if you, as a Jewish believer, want to show how Jewish you are and you don't eat kosher, you could be at the home of a secular Jew and they're not eating kosher. You know, they're serving you pork. You're like, oh, I don't eat it because I'm a Jew. They're like, well, I'm a Jew. So we're not going to impress anybody with that anyway. And you're not going to impress a traditional Jew by keeping some of the customs and traditions because they keep all those, plus all the ones from the rabbis and things like that. What's going to impress them is the presence of God. What's going to impress them is new life in Yeshua. What's going to impress them is the Holy Spirit working through us and touching their lives. That's what will make the difference. So, I appreciate the conversation.
But one last question.
Yeah.
Please. Would you say that it is serious to do that as a pastor to tell others?
Yes, that they should, that they must, even.
They're bound. They should.
Yes, I would say that's serious. I would say it's serious.
You would say it's serious, yeah.
Yeah, because it's ultimately going to get them majoring on something secondary, as opposed to in their relationship with the Lord, in the new covenant, as the Holy Spirit writes something on their heart, that they do it out of love, that they do it out of joy, that they do it out of a heart of solidarity with our people, as opposed to having someone mandate it, and now it's going to lead to confusion. Yeah, so I would say it's serious.
Yeah.
All right. God bless you.
Yeah. So bless you. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Sure
bless
thing.
You.
Bless you. 866-348-7884. I saw a report, Jerusalem Post, the other day, that there had been, maybe as of about 3-4 months ago, that Israel was investigating 70 allegations of war crimes. So Israeli soldiers committing what would be considered war crimes. In other words, they acted in ways that are illegal according to international standards of law. And of course, Hamas, Hezbollah, the terrorists, every single day that they operate, they violate the code of conduct. They're terrorists. They're not conducting a war with international standards. They're terrorists. So they're constantly doing it. For Israel to do it, that's a serious violation. I now saw the numbers up to 300 cases being investigated. You say that's terrible. Of course it's terrible. I totally agree. The difference between Israel and the Islamic terrorists is that Israel is investigating this and will punish those who have violated these standards. And it happens in every war. Happens in every war. Soldiers go too far. People decide that they just had it. Maybe a friend of theirs was just killed. They're going to take things too far. There are allegations that Israeli soldiers sodomized a prisoner, Palestinian prisoner. This is all being investigated. Medical examinations, all being investigated. So Israel is guilty of doing things wrongly like any other nation. But Israel, like America and other civilized nations, will now hold their soldiers accountable, and there will be investigations. So I've never painted a picture of Israel being blameless and perfect. However, Israel will follow through. And there will be national protests when word gets out of certain crimes, and thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of Israelis will rally to say that it's not who we are and how we want to be represented. So I never try to whitewash Israel. I simply say that you cannot make a moral equivalency between the IDF and Hamas, any more than you can make a moral equivalency between the Allied armies in World War II and the Nazis. So Yahya Sinwar, who is still hiding somewhere in tunnels in Gaza and was the key mastermind of the October 7th massacre, has now been appointed the political leader of Hamas to replace Ismail Haniyeh. And there is an article on Jerusalem Post. When did this occur? It was posted on August 7th, so just a couple days back, or yesterday. Yesterday, it was revealed that Hamas's Shura Council unanimously decided to name Yahya Sinwar as the leader of Hamas's political bureau, replacing assassinated former leader Ismail Haniyeh, in addition to his current role as the leader of Hamas in Gaza. So he's born in 1962. He was born in the Khan Yunis refugee camp. He was among the founders of the Hamas militia, the Izz-ad-Din al-Qassam brigades. He was sentenced in Israeli court to 5 life sentences after his assassination of Palestinians whom he accused of collaborating with Israel. He has boasted about killing people with his own bare hands and detailed how he's done it. While in Israeli prison, he developed a brain tumor, and Israeli doctors successfully removed the brain tumor, saved his life. And then he was one of, over 1,000 prisoners released, indicted terrorists released by Israel just to get back the one prisoner, Gilad Shalit. So this was in 2011. He learned Hebrew while he was in prison, learned a lot more about Israeli society, etc. So he's expressed in the past his pride in Hamas's deep relationship with the Islamic Republic regime in Iran. Says terrorist leader Sinwar, who until October 7th was renowned for his public appearances and provocative, feisty speeches, has not made any public appearances for a while. A glimpse of Sinwar was made public in a video released by the IDF spokesman back in February, where the leader of the terror organization was apparently escaping with some of his young family members through the sophisticated underground tunnel system in Gaza, restricted to Hamas officials only, while ordinary Gazans were to remain outside, exposed to Israeli retaliatory bombardments. That's why some of the people of Gaza have had it with Hamas. The people in Judea, Samaria, West Bank, they're much, much more pro-Hamas, according to surveys and polls, than the people in Gaza, because the people in Gaza have suffered terribly because of what Hamas has done and Israel's retaliation accordingly. So Sinwar, just a picture that appeared to be him leaving in one of the tunnels of Gaza immediately after Israel began its attack. We don't know where he is, though, to this day. But here's what's interesting, what I want to share with you. Sinwar was described in different reports as hardline, extremist, and even narcissistic, with some reporting psychopathic behavior. Additionally, the leader of the terrorist organization reportedly sports messianic views, viewing himself and Hamas as messengers who would bring upon Allah's promise for the end of days, namely Wa'id al-Akhirah, in which the entire world would become Muslim and all heretics would be killed, starting with the alleged, quote, liberation of Palestine. Since Sinwar is regarded as the chief orchestrator of the October 7th massacre, understanding his religious convictions is crucial to comprehend the ambitions of this attack. In 2021, Sinwar's Hamas established an honorary body called the Hereafter Promise Authority, which was endowed with the responsibility to administrate Palestine after its liberation. In that same year, the authority convened an eponymous conference overseen by Sinwar himself, which laid out detailed plans for the exact political, diplomatic, administrative, civilian, military measures that would be taken once, quote, liberated Palestine replaces Israel, etc. So the fact is, there's this vision of end times that Sinwar seems to hold to, according to these reports, and leading the way in this would be, quote, the liberation of Palestine. This would be part of Allah's final war against the infidels, and Sinwar would be a major player if these reports are accurate. Back with your calls.
This is Michael Ellison, founder of Trivita Wellness. I'm always thrilled to offer a new product from Trivita that is science-supported with equivalent doses per serving that follows the science. And that is true of our KSM 66 ashwagandha with its protective process from farm to manufacturing plant. The KSM 66 has 24 published gold standard clinical trials in reducing stress, enhancing sleep, and increased vitality. In a recent Harris poll, 87% of Americans feel stressed. I know the effects of chronic stress. It happened to me a number of years ago, and I will never forget when the physician said, Michael, you must change the way you think, or you will have no quality of life and you will die a premature death. Now, I can assure you ashwagandha KSM 66 is in my daily diet.
I'm Dr. Paul Burnett, a board-certified doctor of holistic health and director of wellness services at Trivita. I want you to know that Trivita's ashwagandha KSM 66 is not just ashwagandha. Ashwagandha KSM 66 undergoes a rigorous formulation process and has 22 gold standard clinical trials. Trivita's ashwagandha KSM 66 adaptogenic properties assist your body in adapting to stress, reducing fatigue, and restoring your natural balance. Join countless others who have discovered the benefits of Trivita's ashwagandha KSM 66.
Order today and use promo code BROWN25 to receive 25% off your order. As a new customer, 100% of your order proceeds from your first order will go to support the Line of Fire radio broadcast. Call 1-800-771-5584, 1-800-771-5584, or online at trivita.com.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown. Get on The Line of Fire by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Welcome back to The Line of Fire. It's Thoroughly Jewish Thursday. We go back to the phones. Carl in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Boy, I was there for the first time last year. Was it early this year? I was struck. It was a beautiful place there. Anyway, welcome to The Line of Fire.
Hello, Dr. Brown. Are we connected okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Just want to know if you could hear me all right. Yeah, you were here in Coeur d'Alene. I remember hearing about that. It is a beautiful place. I love living here.
Sweet.
Hey, I listened to your program Monday or Tuesday on Gog, Magog War and Ezekiel 38 and all of that. I know you won't remember this, but maybe 2 years ago, year and a half, I called in and we discussed the scripture about, Israel living in unwalled villages and peace all around. And we talked about Revelation 20, where Gog and Magog are mentioned again. And
right, so it would be then So if that's chronological and not just a symbolic reference to Gog Magog, then the unwalled villages.
Yeah, that's what I wondered if you could clarify if you mentioned something about chronology.
Yeah.
And then there's that cleansing period after the war, which raises questions about, are we going beyond the millennium, or are we still in the millennium, or where are we?
Right. Right.
Can you go over that again?
Sure. And I'll do my best to make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about. So Ezekiel 38 and 39 passages which speak about a final conflict with Israel and surrounding nations, one of them being Persia, which would be today's Iran. And there's speculation, those of us who believe it is a prophecy still to be fulfilled, is that a final war in this age before the Lord returns? And then he returns, and then there's a period of this massive cleanup, which begins the millennial kingdom, time of judgment, purging. Many of us would believe that's when we stand before God as believers to give account of our lives, and that's when there's the great messianic banquet. So the millennial kingdom would begin in that viewpoint with the messianic kingdom being fully established on the earth, with the final cleanup after the wicked have been destroyed, and the cleanup following the Gog-Magog war, etc. And and it would be a time that the text speaks of Israel living in unwalled villages, unsuspecting, peaceful, and then this final conflict. 1 Thessalonians 5, when everyone's saying peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes. Is that what it's talking about? Or Revelation 20 mentions this in context of the end of the millennial kingdom. So those of us who believe there'll be the Messianic kingdom on the earth for 1,000 years, and at the end of that, Satan is loosed from the bottomless pit and leads a multitude in rebellion against God, and then God puts this down, and that's referenced as Gog, Magog. So many would say that is not for this age, this will not happen before Jesus returns, and that Revelation 20 is telling us that this is something at the end of the millennial kingdom. It mentions the 1,000-year reign of Jesus repeatedly in Revelation, the 20th chapter, and that's why Israel is dwelling in unwalled villages and everything's peaceful, because it's the millennial kingdom there. Everything's wonderful. They're not expecting a final onslaught. So that's certainly possible. The problem with that is the idea of, at the end of the millennium, now going into the eternal age, that now is some kind of cleanup. And I thought we end the millennium and go right into the eternal age, whereas it seems that it starts with a cleanup period and it doesn't go into an eternal age in Ezekiel 38 and 39. So that raises questions about interpreting it that way. You say, but it says Gog, Magog. So here's what we have to understand. And this is the obvious question you're asking. The book of Revelation is constantly making reference to Old Testament imagery. It's making reference to visionary material, symbolic animals, and visions. It only quotes one verse directly. That's from Psalm 2, that the Lord will smash his enemies, the sun, with a rod of iron, a rule like that. But some scholars have estimated that as many as 278 out of 404 verses in the book of Revelation borrow from Old Testament imagery. So it could just be borrowing the image of a Gog-Magog type war. In other words, of a multitude attacking, and that's all it is. It's symbolic. It's not meant to say this is when the actual war takes place. But honestly, it's debatable, Carl. I mean, how can we be dogmatic about something in that way? We can do our best to understand.
Can we
go ahead?
Can we be dogmatic about the end of the millennium? Is there anything where we can conclusively say that this may not be something literal, that we are truly at the end of the millennium? That's just something I wondered about, because you go on in 21 and 22 to describe aspects of the heavenly kingdom, but is it absolutely? And then there's that time lapse in the end of Daniel where it gives some dates, and all of a sudden you're at 2034 or something like that. Is there anything conclusive in the word that says that, hey, this is the end of the millennium, when Gog and Magog, and that's it, and then we enter right into
eternity,
the heavenly kingdom.
Right.
I just wonder about that.
No, I don't think so. Look, we get 1,000 years.
That's why it still could be a question.
Yeah. I look, to be honest with you, I believe it's a question. As I understand it, because it follows on the heels of Ezekiel 36 and 37, both of which talk about the restoration of the Jewish people back to the land in this age, beginning in the Babylonian captivity and now culminating in our day. And these are passages about attack on that Israel in the land. That's why and then I see other passages like Zechariah 12 and Zechariah 14 talk about the surrounding nations, or all the nations attacking Jerusalem and Israel, and God delivering Israel from that. That's why I understand Gog Magog to be something before Jesus returns. But can I say with utter dogmatism that it's not just squeezed together, that 36 and 37 are now squeezed together with a picture at the end of the millennium, and that the millennium will not end with a massive cleanup before the eternal age? No, to be dogmatic about that, I believe, is to be a little arrogant or foolish, just because, look, we look at the Old Testament and see how amazingly clear the Messianic prophecies are. I've sat with endless Christians who say, how come Jewish people don't see it? How come the rabbis don't see it? Well, remember, the disciples didn't even see it until Yeshua opened their eyes. And then it was after his death and resurrection, it's like, how did we not see this? It's so clear. So many times prophecy becomes abundantly clear as it comes to pass. You're like, whoa,
Amen
there it
to
is.
that.
And if God gave us too much information in advance, we try to make the thing happen. We try to manufacture it. That's why prophecy is sometimes in more mystical language. And then as it unfolds, even those of us who believe in prophecy today, sometimes things are stated in a way that's clear, but not clear enough that we could be dogmatic about every detail. And then as it unfolds, you look back and think, that was amazingly accurate, but it's only in the light of the situation coming to pass. So for sure, there has to be debate on it because of the way it's written in Revelation 20. And then, of course, they're the Christians who see Revelation 20, even the 1,000 years, as all symbolic in meaning and don't believe in a literal millennial kingdom. Right. So I do quite strongly, but we don't divide over those things. Hey, thank you for the questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, a lot left to chew on, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. But for sure, we see clearly a final conflict surrounding the land of Israel at the end of this age, one in which God himself will fight for his people and deliver them, and one that includes a spiritual turning of Jewish people to the Messiah. So that I'm very dogmatic about, but these other issues have to be up for debate. Hey, God bless you, man.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
So let me say this. I know, I'm fully aware, if I say this prophecy ties in with this headline here, that it would draw a lot more people to listen to us and follow us and watch us. But for what purpose? My goal is not to get followers. My goal is not to get numbers. My goal is to glorify God by making impact in each of your lives. My goal is to make the maximum impact for the kingdom and the maximum number of people, but not by compromising or clickbait or something like that. And if what I'm saying is not accurate, what's the use of drawing followers? Or we got 1 million new followers this month based on putting out sensationalistic falsehood. That's just deception. So now there are some who genuinely believe. They've studied the word. They genuinely believe that this lines up with this headline. This is okay. You do what you feel God wants you to do. That's not my view. My view is much more tentative about connecting events today to things in the Bible. But the broad strokes, the big picture, yes, I'm dogmatic about and strong about, but not to the point of dividing from brothers and sisters over those issues. All right. One way that we can equip you, one way that we can pour into you, and it's absolutely free, is our monthly Frontline newsletter. You will look forward to getting it this month as I'm celebrating 10 years, come on, of healthy eating by God's grace without exception, and feel like I'm getting younger every year. I didn't know 70 felt as close to 20 as I'm in my 69th year now. So we're going to talk about some of that transformation and encourage you as well. Yes, we want to encourage you. If you're not getting the Frontline newsletter, go to thelineoffire.org. Thelineoffire.org. Click subscribe. All right, and we'll get you on our welcome tour, share more of my personal testimony, more of the 3 R's of our ministry, and let you know about thousands, as in thousands, of free resources made available to you on The Line of Fire. So go to thelineoffire.org, click subscribe.